up like the Earth accidentally forgot to keep a secret. Welcome to the story of Ethiopia's hidden oil jackpot. The discovery so low-key, it fooled everyone, until science showed up with receipts. And trust me, this changes everything. Let's start with the part that sounds fake, but isn't. For decades, in places like Ilu and Legahita in southern Wollo, locals noticed something strange along the Mekelle River. Thick, black, sticky patches seeping from the ground. No alarms, no headlines, just oil casually breaking the fourth wall. But to the people living there, this wasn't liquid gold. It was earth medicine, a traditional remedy, lamp fuel, a weird curiosity kids poked with sticks.
The truth about gold. Gold is seen as the ultimate asset for protecting wealth.
Lamp fuel, a weird curiosity kids poked with sticks. Nobody called an oil company. Nobody called the government. Because why would you? When something has always been there, it stops feeling important. But here's the thing. Geology teaches us, oil doesn't leak by accident. Whenever crude reaches the surface, it's the planet basically whispering, hey, there's a lot more where that came from. And Wollo had been whispering for generations. Now here's where the story flips from folklore to full-blown economic thriller. In late 2022 and 2023, Ethiopian and international geoscientists finally tested the seepage. Not vibes, not guesses, hard science, UV analysis, infrared spectroscopy, NMR, GCMS, the full CSI lineup. And the verdict? This wasn't tar. This wasn't contamination. This wasn't some half-baked hydrocarbon cosplay. This was mature, high-quality crude oil, low asphaltenes, high saturated hydrocarbons, chemically comparable to oils from major African petroleum basins. In simple terms, this wasn't junk oil. This was the good stuff. And even more important, this oil wasn't dead. It was actively migrating upward, which means deep underground. A petroleum system is alive, cooking, and producing. That's not luck. That's a geological confession. But here's the real mic drop moment. The oil didn't come from nowhere. Geochemical fingerprints traced it back to a marine shale source deep within the Abai Blue Nile Basin, one of Ethiopia's 5 major sedimentary basins. For years, the national oil conversation revolved around one place, the Ogaden. Gas-rich, yes, but oil, always uncertain. Wollo just kicked the door open and said, "You've been looking in the wrong direction." Because suddenly, Ethiopia wasn't dealing with a single hydrocarbon frontier anymore. It had options. And options change negotiations. Options change leverage. Options change futures. But before we get ahead of ourselves, here's the question, hanging in the air. If this oil is real, if it's commercial, if it's been leaking naturally for decades, why hasn't Ethiopia already cashed in? That's where the story gets messy, political, and expensive, because discovery is the easy part. What happens next? That's where empires rise, or miss their moment. And in the next section, we're diving into the geological bombshell, the failed first deal, and the number that made officials sit up straight. A number that starts with a 2 and ends with billion barrels. Yeah, things are about to get serious. Now let's zoom out, because Wollo's oil isn't just about geology or drilling rigs. This is where the story stops being technical and starts becoming transformational. If even a portion of this oil moves from underground estimates to actual production, Ethiopia's economic equation changes overnight. Right now, Ethiopia imports almost all of its petroleum. Every liter of fuel means foreign currency flowing out, dollars leaving, pressure building on reserves, the birr taking hits it didn't ask for. A domestic oil source flips that script. Instead of bleeding foreign exchange, Ethiopia starts saving it, stabilizing it, using it for infrastructure, industry, and leverage. Oil doesn't just fuel cars, it fuels balance sheets. And suddenly, energy security stops being a dream and starts looking like a spreadsheet that finally makes sense. But the ripple effects don't stop there. Because Wollo wouldn't be Ethiopia's first hydrocarbon region, it would be its second. With natural gas already coming online in the Ogaden, oil in Wollo creates something Ethiopia has never had before: a diversified energy portfolio. Oil, gas, hydroelectric power, geothermal potential, all in one country. That's not normal for the Horn of Africa. That's strategic depth. It means Ethiopia isn't betting its future on one resource or one region. It means options, and options in geopolitics are power. But here's where the story hits emotionally, not just economically. Wara Ilu. That name carries weight. For many Ethiopians, Wollo is not associated with wealth. It's associated with the famine of the 1980s, images of hunger, of suffering, of international aid planes dropping supplies into a region defined by scarcity. Now imagine the narrative whiplash. The same land, once known globally for famine sitting on top of billions of barrels of crude oil. A place etched into history as a symbol of hardship, suddenly holding one of the country's most valuable underground assets. That's not just irony, that's history doing a full reversal. It's the kind of shift that changes how a region sees itself.
The UK's fastest broadband speeds from Ended.
This powerful heater can heat up any room in seconds without the high electricity costs. Electricity supplies.
It's the kind of how a region sees itself and how the world sees it too. And oil doesn't arrive quietly. If production begins, Wollo doesn't just get wells, it gets roads, pipelines, power lines, storage facilities, worker housing, training centers, entire supply chains. Oil creates gravity, jobs pull people in, infrastructure spreads outward, small towns grow teeth, electricity access expands, skills transfer happens. A region once sidelined becomes central. This isn't abstract. This is how oil reshapes landscapes, physically and economically. But before anyone starts celebrating, there's a harder truth waiting in the shadows. Because oil doesn't just create opportunity, it creates risk. Mismanaged oil has wrecked countries. Corruption, conflict, inequality, environmental damage. The resource curse isn't a theory. It's a warning label written in bold letters across history. So the real challenge isn't whether Wollo has oil. It's whether Ethiopia can unlock it without being consumed by it. That means choosing the right partners, negotiating smart production sharing agreements, protecting local communities, planning refining capacity instead of exporting raw value, managing expectations before hype turns into pressure. This isn't geology anymore, this is statecraft. And Wollo has just become one of the most important testing grounds for Ethiopia's future. Because how this story ends will echo far beyond oil. And that brings us to the final question.